Welcome to Tank Guide Life, a product of FishKeepingLifeCo.
In this deep dive, we're going inside the tank guide. We're going to unpack the tools, the philosophy, and the entire ecosystem our team has built.
Yeah, our mission here is to give you a really clear, thorough understanding of how everything works together. We're talking about the stocking advisor, the cycling coach.
All of it. We want to show you how they're built, why you can trust them, and, exactly how to use them. Whether you're literally just starting out or maybe you're coming back to the hobby after a while.
Okay, let's get right into it. The starting point for so many people in the aquarium hobby is, well, it's chaos. It really is.
Oh, absolutely. It's less of a fun new project and more like you've just been thrown into a chemistry class you didn't sign up for.
Exactly. You're hit with all these acronyms, all this conflicting advice from forums and social media. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And that feeling, that complete information overload, is the exact problem we set out to solve with Fish Keeping Life Go.
It is. Because that overwhelming feeling, it often leads to failure. And, sadly, that usually involves losing fish, and that just drives people away from the hobby for good.
Which is the last thing we want.
Right. So the core mission of the Tank Guide is to be that clear, calm voice in all the noise. We want to guide you, whether you're a total beginner, a parent setting up a tank for the kids, or even an expert coming back after a break. And take you from that initial confusion to real, actual confidence.
So it's not about just giving someone a quick answer. It's more about building a real foundation of knowledge.
That's it, exactly. The whole idea is to make aquarium science, simple, to make it beautiful and accessible for everyone. We take the real-world chemistry and biology and translate it into plain language, into simple, step-by-step actions.
So that when something inevitably goes wrong, because it will, right? This is a little slice of nature.
It always does.
And you're not panicking. You're following a process that you already understand.
Precise.
I think the About page on the site is really interesting because it gives you a sense of the DNA of the company. This isn't some giant corporation.
No, not at all. It's laid out right there. It's a small, independent studio. One-person studio, really, that's creating all these tools and the books and the guides.
What does that transparency kind of tell you about the whole approach?
It tells you that everything is grounded in personal, real-world experience, not just, market research. We have this idea we call the learn out loud approach.
Okay.
So when you see the word we on the site, it's very intentional. It means the founder, it means the aquariums themselves, which are basically our long-running test labs, and it means the community that gives us feedback. It's a signal that this isn't just corporate marketing speak. It's a shared journey.
And part of that is being really honest about the messy side of the hobby. I mean, the site talks about late-night water changes, tank crashes, do-overs.
All of it. All the mistakes we made along the way. That honesty, we think, it builds trust. We try to emphasize that success doesn't come from some magic, expensive gadget.
Right.
It comes from small, consistent habits. And those habits are guided by real-world testing that we document, like in our 29-gallon reference tank. That documented proof is it's essential for the kind of guidance we're trying to provide.
So if we step back and look at the whole ecosystem, it's actually a very structured path, isn't it? How do all these different pieces fit together?
They're designed to flow together logically for your whole journey.
Yeah.
So at the very center, you've got the interactive tools. That's the stocking advisor, the cycling coach, the gear guide. They're the engines.
The planning and tracking part.
Exactly. Then, supporting all of that, you have the media hub. That's where you find all the watch, read, explore, content videos, blogs, our research logs, links to university papers, all of that.
And then you have the physical products, the things that bridge that gap between the screen and the real world, like the Life and Balance book and the daily tank journals.
They're for building those habits. And finally, you have the community features, like Feature Your Tank, which is all about real-world inspiration from other hobbyists. It's a complete loop, really. It's designed to give you resources for every single stage.
Okay, let's dig into that foundational philosophy. There are a couple of core values that really stand out. The first one, and it feels like the most important, is fish welfare first.
It's the non-negotiable. Absolutely. We state it very clearly. A pretty tank only matters if the animals inside it are calm, healthy, and respected.
And that idea directly influences how the tools are built, right?
Completely. You see it right away in how we approach stocking. We use very conservative stocking rules and bioload calculations.
So you're not trying to push the absolute limit of what a tank can handle. You're building in a safety buffer.
A huge safety buffer. We use those conservative estimates so that if a beginner misses a water change, or makes a little mistake, the system has enough margin of error to protect the fish. And crucially, before we even talk about adding fish, the #1 priority is a complete, verifiable nitrogen cycle.
The invisible engine.
The invisible engine has to be running perfectly first. That's what the cycling coach is all about.
And this focus on health is tied directly to science. You guys call it science, but human-sized. How do you keep that scientific credibility while, making it simple enough for a beginner to understand?
We do it by being transparent about what we call our research backbone. The university section on the site isn't just a bunch of blog posts, it's a curated hub. The advice we give is backed up by direct links to academic studies from places like Duke, Penn State, the University of Florida's IFA extension.
So you're doing the homework for the user.
Exactly. We take that dense, peer-reviewed research and we translate it into clear, step-by-step actions. It means you don't have to go read a technical paper on nitrification just to cycle your tank.
Which immediately solves the credibility problem you see with so many other hobby sites. Okay, what about the second core value? No gatekeeping and clarity over jargon.
This one is huge for us. It's a direct rejection of that elitist attitude you sometimes find in the hobby.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Where beginners get shamed for making really common mistakes.
Right. We want to make knowledge accessible. And this is key-free. The main tools, the guides, the educational pages, they are all free to use. You don't even need to make an account to use the calculators.
And that's all about helping someone who's just completely overwhelmed.
It's about breaking that paralysis. When you find 10 different forum threads with 10 conflicting answers about what filter media to use, we want to provide that one clear, calm path forward. And that's where the Learn Out Loud idea becomes a teaching tool.
You mentioned the blog content where you guys share your own mistakes. Why is that so important?
Well, sharing our own difficult experiences, like the blog post we did about the trouble we had cycling one of our own tanks, it does two things. First, it normalizes failure. It shows that even experienced keepers hit roadblocks.
It makes it less intimidating.
And second, it proves that the advice we're giving is science in action, not just in theory. The Media Hub is like a living document. We share the logs, the data, the results, so you see the whole process, not just some perfect, polished final picture.
It's proof of work. Okay, so let's walk through the intended user path. You call it the life cycle. How do these tools connect to build good habits?
We lay out a very structured path. First, you master the foundation with the cycling coach. That's stage 1, that critical 4 to 8 week process. Once that's done, you move to build a balanced community with the stocking advisor. Then, you match equipment with the gear guide. And finally, you maintain habits with the physical journals or the Media Hub.
That sequence makes a lot of sense. But how does the site itself guide you from one step to the next?
We tried to design it to eliminate decision fatigue. So, for example, when you finish a stocking plan in the stocking advisor, it doesn't just stop. It immediately gives you recommendations and links you right to the gear guide to find the right filter or heater for that specific plan.
Oh, that's smart.
It reinforces the idea that your equipment choices are directly tied to the health of the animals you've chosen.
All right, let's do a deep dive into the stocking advisor itself. This is the tool that's designed to stop probably the most common and most heartbreaking mistake in the hobby.
Overstocking. And the first thing it does is just completely demolish that old inch per gallon rule.
We have to talk about that rule. It's everywhere, and it sounds so simple. 1 inch of fish per gallon of water. Why is it so bad?
It's dangerously simplistic. It only looks at one factor length, and it ignores everything else that actually matters biologically.
Okay, give me an example.
All right, imagine 2 fish. They're both 5 inches long. One is a slow, solitary betta, very low waist, doesn't move much. The other is a plico, a high metabolism fish that grazes constantly and produces a huge amount of waste.
Right.
The inch per gallon rule treats them exactly the same.
Right.
But their bioload, their actual impact on the water quality, is worlds apart. Following that rule is a direct path to a toxic crashing tank.
So the core of the tool is this scientific calculation of bioload.
That's the key. Bioload is the science-based metric. It looks at waste production, oxygen demand, activity level, body mass, all of it. And we use conservative estimates. A fast swimmer, like a zebra danio, is weighted much more heavily than a slow cruiser of the same size. We're designing for a balanced ecosystem, not just a head count.
But stocking isn't only about waste, it's about behavior, right? Temperament. How does the tool help you avoid a fish fight club in your tank?
That's the compatibility logic. It's basically preventative medicine for your aquarium community. It uses detailed, species-specific behavior profiles from verified sources. It doesn't just say aggressive or peaceful. It looks at the nuances.
Okay, so give me a specific example of a conflict it would flag.
Sure, let's say you plan to put a dwarf puffer, which is a tiny but very effective predator, in a tank with a colony of cherry shrimp.
Mm-hmm.
Bad idea. The tool will flag that immediately. It knows the puffer is a shrimp unsafe hunter. Or, another classic one, if you try to pair a fin nipper like a tiger barb with a beautiful long-finned beta, you'll get a clear warning that one fish is very likely to harass and injure the other. It looks at all those dynamics.
That takes so much of the painful guesswork out of it. What about the water chemistry? It's so easy for a beginner to just pick fish they think look cool together.
And then find out their needs are completely opposite. This is where the environmental recommendations feature is, I think, a game changer. It saves you from hours of Googling.
How does it work?
You can select, say, 5 different species you're interested in. The tool then calculates the single optimal overlapping range for temperature, pH, and water hardness, where all of those fish can thrive together.
Wow. Okay, what's a classic mistake a beginner might make that this would catch?
The most famous one is pairing something like neon tetras, which needs soft acidic water, with African cichlids, which need very hard alkaline water.
They look great at the store, but in the tank.
It's a disaster.
Yeah.
One group or the other will be incredibly stressed. The stocking advisor would throw up a huge red flag because their pH and hardness ranges don't overlap at all. It forces you to match the fish to the water you have, not the other way around.
Okay, let's talk about the advanced functionality. The tool isn't just a simple list. It integrates your equipment, specifically your filter. How does that work?
Right. This gets into capacity planning. You tell the tool what kind of filter you have, a hang-on back, a canister, a sponge filter, and most importantly, you input its gallons per hour or GPH flow rate.
And why is GPH the critical number there?
Because GPH determines the turnover rate of your water. The rule of thumb we use is that you want to turn over the entire volume of your tank about 5 to 7 times per hour. That high flow rate ensures good oxygenation and gets waste to the filter media quickly. The tool then uses that GPH to calculate what we call the residual biological capacity, or RBC.
Okay, let's unpack that term. What is residual biological capacity?
Think of it like your tank's safety buffer. It's the measure of how much extra bioload your filter's beneficial bacteria colony can handle beyond what your current fish are producing.
So it's not just, is my tank full? It's how much room for error do I have?
Precisely. A
Yeah.
stronger filter with a higher GPH and more media surface area means a higher RBC, which gives you a more stable system. It's a scientific way of saying your life support system is strong enough for this.
That makes so much sense. And the tool prompts you to revisit your plan, right? It's not a one-and-done thing.
Absolutely not. It reminds you to update the plan anytime you change the tank size, the filter, or the fish. And really importantly, it reminds you to update it when you add or remove a lot of fast-growing live plants.
Why are plants such a big variable in a stocking plan?
Because plants are huge nutrient consumers. They actively pull nitrates, the end product of the nitrogen cycle, out of the water. So a heavily planted tank actually has a higher effective capacity for processing waste. The tool needs to know that to give you an accurate long-term picture.
I did notice you can override the compatibility warnings. If the goal is safety, why include that?
That's a little nod to the advanced hobbyist, the theory crafter. The option is there, but we state very clearly it's only for someone who fully understands the risks and knows how to manage them, with special tank design or intense monitoring. For a beginner, the advice is always the same. Follow the warnings. The default is always safety first.
Okay, so if the stocking advisor prevents overstocking, the cycling coach prevents new tank syndrome. This whole nitrogen cycle thing is, I think, the single biggest hurdle for beginners.
It is. It's invisible, it's chemistry, and it's intimidating. The coach is designed to replace all that fear with a guided, trackable process. It just standardizes everything.
Let's just quickly review the process like the coach does before we get into the deep science.
For sure. The nitrogen cycle is your tank's life support. It's a bacterial process that takes about 4 to 8 weeks. First, toxic ammonia from fish waste is eaten by one type of bacteria and turned into still toxic nitrite. Then a second type of bacteria eats that nitrite and turns it into much safer nitrate. The whole process of cycling is just about growing big, healthy colonies of those two types of bacteria.
And the coach guides you through both of the common methods for doing that?
Yep. It supports the fishless cycle, which is what we strongly recommend for beginners. You add an ammonia source to an empty tank and just grow the bacteria. It also supports the more difficult fish-in method, but with a lot of warnings that it requires constant testing and is much more stressful for the fish.
And when people skip this process, that's when they get new tank syndrome. Can you describe what that crash looks like?
It's a rapid downward spiral. You add fish to an uncycled tank, their waste produces ammonia, and there's not enough bacteria to process it. So ammonia and nitrite levels spike to toxic levels. You'll see cloudy water, and the fish will be visibly stressed, gasping at the surface, hiding, not eating. The coach is designed to prevent that exact scenario from ever happening.
Okay, now here's where the tool gets really sophisticated. The toxic ammonia calculation. Most test kits don't tell you the whole story, do they?
Not even close. And this is a critical life or death distinction. Most kits measure total ammonia nitrogen, or TAN. But TAN is made up of two forms: the relatively harmless ionized form and the truly deadly unionized form, NHs. That's the one we actually care about.
And the balance between those two forms changes based on temperature and pH, which a lot of beginners don't think about.
Exactly. It's a chemical equilibrium. The higher your pH and the higher your temperature, the more of that total ammonia exists in the toxic NHs form. So you could have a total ammonia reading that looks low, but in a warm, high pH tank, it could still be lethal.
And the cycling coach actually calculates this for you.
It does. It uses the Emerson formula. It takes your total ammonia reading from your test kit, your pH, and your tank's temperature, and it calculates an accurate estimate of the actual toxic ammonia concentration.
And it gives you a clear safety threshold.
Yes. Based on EPA aquatic life criteria, we flag any toxic ammonia level above 0.02 parts per million as potentially stressful to fish. If your reading hits that level, the coach gives you an immediate action step. Do a water change, add an ammonia detoxifier, increase aeration. It's an advanced safety feature built into a simple interface.
So you track your numbers for a few weeks, you think the cycle is done. What's the final test to prove it?
That's the 24-hour challenge. This is the final exam for your filter. It's not just about seeing zeros on your test. It's about testing the system's capacity to handle a sudden load.
How does it work?
You deliberately dose pure ammonia into the tank, bringing the level up to about 2 parts per million. Then you wait 24 hours. The challenge is to see if your filter can process all of that ammonia and all of the resulting nitrite, all the way down to zero within that single day.
If it passes, you know your bacterial colonies are big enough and strong enough.
You know they're robust. And after you pass, the coach guides you through the final steps. A big water change to lower the nitrates that built up, stabilizing the temperature, and then finally adding fish very, very slowly.
What if someone gets stuck? Their cycle just stalls out. How does the coach help with that?
It prompts you to review your log. Did you forget to add a bacteria booster? Is the temperature too low? Is there not enough oxygen from an air stone? It helps you troubleshoot those common plateaus. It really acts like a personal guide through the whole confusing process.
We've laid the foundation with cycling and stocking. Now let's look at the rest of the FKLCO ecosystem. The gear guide seems designed to solve the problem of just too many choices.
Exactly. It's meant to cut through all the product hype. We organize recommendations by tank size first and foremost, and we prioritize safety and reliability over just what's new or cheap.
Can you give an example of that safety-first approach?
The best one is our recommendation of an external temperature controller, like an Inkbird, as smart insurance. A beginner just buys a heater, but heaters are probably the single most common point of catastrophic failure. They get stuck on and cook the tank.
A total nightmare scenario.
It is. So the controller acts as a failsafe. It's a separate device that cuts power to the heater if the temperature goes even a little bit over your set point. It's a small investment that can save your entire aquarium.
And what are the main rules of thumb you push in the guide?
We circle back to the science. 5 watts of heater per gallon of water is a good baseline. And that 5 to 7 times turnover rate for your filter's GPH. And for testing, we prioritize the API Freshwater Master Test Kit as the gold standard for monitoring those crucial parameters.
Okay, let's talk about the Media Hub, the watch, read, explore section. This is where that learning out loud idea really comes to life.
For sure. The content is broken down into different types. The blogs are for very practical, hands-on tips. For instance, our guide to getting rid of blackbeard algae, BBA. We don't just say use an algaecide. We give a very specific 5-step spot dosing routine.
Okay, let's walk through that routine because that kind of detail is super helpful.
Right. So the key is to apply the chemical directly to the algae. Step 1, you turn off all water flow. Your filter, your power heads, everything. Step 2, you use a little syringe to spot dose the liquid algaecide right onto the BBA. Step 3, you wait for 10 or 15 minutes. This lets the chemical work before it gets diluted.
Right, so it's concentrated.
Exactly. Step 4, you turn all the flow back on. And step 5, you just observe. In a few days, the algae should turn pink or white, which means it's dying. Turning off the flow is the critical step that makes it so effective.
That's a great actionable tip. And the university section connects that kind of practical advice back to the science behind it.
It gives you the why. That's where we link out to those academic resources from Duke and Penn State. It shows you the science behind water chemistry and filtration. And then the journal section shows you the proof with the actual data logs from our own tanks.
So you can watch a video on how to do a water test, read a university article on what the results mean, and then use the cycling coach to log your own data.
It's a complete learning loop.
And then there are the physical products, the journals, the coloring books. This seems like a way to encourage good habits away from the screen.
That's exactly the philosophy. Success is about routine. The storybook, Life in Balance, is designed to make the nitrogen cycle fun and easy for families to understand. But the real workhorse is the daily tank journal.
And there are 2 versions of that, right? What's the difference?
The standard one is for tracking your basic water parameters, maintenance, when you did your last water change. The planted edition, though, is for the serious aquascapers. It has dedicated sections for tracking Curo dosing, lighting schedules, and complex fertilizer routines. It's a physical record that complements the digital tools.
And finally, the community part. Feature your tank.
This is so important. It's the validation for the whole system. It's where people can share their success stories and inspire others. It's 100% free to submit your photos and your tank story.
But you do have a way for people to support it if they want to.
We do. We offer little optional upgrades, like a $1 edit package for your story, or a $3 option to make your page ad-free. It's just a way to help cover the costs of hosting and curating all that community content while keeping the core tools totally free for everyone. So as we start to wrap this up, we really hope you have a better picture of how to build a thriving aquarium with confidence. The big takeaway is that success in this hobby is totally achievable. It just takes a bit of structure, a bit of science, and those small, consistent habits.
And the Tank Guide ecosystem is designed to give you that clarity every step of the way. You know where to start, you know which tools to use, and you know that those tools are built on a solid foundation of science and fish welfare.
Exactly.
All right, if you enjoyed this deep dive and you learned something new, please do us a solid. Follow the show so you never miss an episode. And leave us a rating, preferably 5 stars. It really, truly helps the show reach more fish keepers.
Please do. And share this episode with anyone you know who might be struggling or just starting out.
And don't forget about our giveaway. To celebrate the launch of Tank Guide Life, we're giving away a free Life in Balance journal or a coloring book. It's easy to enter. Just follow us on any social platform, find the post for this episode, and comment with the code FKLCTTG.
That's FKLCCLC_TTG. Once we get between 15 and 25 entries, we'll pick a winner at random.
We'll leave you with one final thought to mull over.
The biggest lesson the Tank Guide really teaches isn't just how to add fish. It's how to see and understand the invisible forces at play in your tank, the temperature, the pH, the chemistry. These are the things that determine life or death long before you ever see a symptom. So the question is, what unseen factor in your tank right now needs to be calculated and brought out of the shadows?
Managing the invisible. That's what it's all about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. You can find all the tools and resources we talked about today over at thetankguide.com. We'll see you next time.